Once in a lifetime. We experience certain moments that seem to last forever, even if they only last for 5 seconds. One such moment happened to me when I was skydiving for the first time, as I leapt out of the airplane. My heart was pounding with adrenaline, the wind rushed past my face, and I felt like I was flying. But then, something strange happened. It was as if time had slowed down. And those 5 seconds felt like an eternity. During that time, I could see every detail of the landscape below me, the green fields, the winding river, and the tiny houses far in the distance. I could hear the rush of the wind and the beating of my own heart. For those 5 seconds, I was fully present in the moment. I forgot about everything else in my life and just focused on the here and now and then. Just as suddenly as it had started, it was over, the parachute opened, and I floated gently down to the ground, even though it was just 5 seconds. That experience has stayed with me ever since. It reminded me to slow down and appreciate the little moments in life that can seem to last forever, if we take the time to savor them.
It only took 5 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down at the crashing waves below. My heart was racing, my palms were sweaty, and I could feel the wind whipping through my hair. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and jumped. For those 5 seconds, I was weightless. I felt like I was flying, soaring through the air with the wind rushing past me. It was the most exhilarating feeling I had ever experienced. But then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. I hit the water with a jarring force, and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I was floating in the water, surrounded by the calm and quiet of the ocean. I felt a sense of peace wash over me, and I knew that I would remember those 5 seconds for the rest of my life. It was a moment of pure bliss, a moment when time stood still and everything was perfect.
I was once in a situation where 5 seconds felt like an eternity. It was a few years ago, when I was hiking alone in a remote area of the forest. I had heard rumors about wild animals in the area, but I thought I was prepared for anything. Suddenly, I heard rustling in the bushes behind me. I turned around and saw a large black bear charging towards me. I froze, unable to move or think. All I could do was stare at the beast as it approached me with lightning speed. In those 5 seconds, my life flashed before my eyes. I thought of my family, my friends, all the things I still wanted to do in life. I was terrified, but I knew I had to do something. At the last second, I remembered the advice I had read about dealing with bears. I stood my ground, raised my arms, and shouted as loudly as I could. The bear stopped in its tracks, only a few feet away from me. It snorted and pawed the ground, but then it turned and lumbered away. I stood there, shaking with fear and relief, for what felt like an eternity. Those 5 seconds were the most dangerous of my life, but they taught me a valuable lesson. They showed me that even in the face of danger, we can find the strength to act and overcome our fear. And they reminded me to always be prepared for the unexpected, no matter how confident we may feel.
I was driving on a deserted road late at night, trying to get home after a long day at work. Suddenly, I saw a pair of headlights rapidly approaching in my rearview mirror. I realized too late that the car was going to crash into me. I braced for impact, but in those few seconds before the collision, my entire life flashed before my eyes. As our cars collided, I felt a searing pain shoot through my body. I struggled to stay conscious as the other driver stumbled out of his car, clearly drunk. I managed to call for help on my phone, but I knew I was in bad shape. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital bed, with doctors telling me that I had broken several bones and would be in recovery for a long time. In the months that followed, I struggled with the physical and emotional trauma of the accident, but it also gave me a newfound appreciation for life and a determination to make the most of every moment. I started sharing my story on Reddit, hoping to encourage others to stay safe on the road and cherish the time they have with loved ones. It was scary to relive those 5 seconds over and over again, but it also helped me heal and connect with others who had experienced similar trauma.
I was driving down a dark and deserted road late at night, when I suddenly saw a figure in the middle of the road. I tried to swerve to avoid hitting it, but it was too late. I hit the figure and my car spun out of control. When I suddenly regained consciousness, I found myself in a strange and unfamiliar place. I was surrounded by darkness, and I couldn't move. It was as if time had stopped, and I was trapped in those few seconds of impact. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It was faint at first, but it grew louder and clearer with each passing moment. The voice spoke to me, and it told me that I had been given a second chance. A chance to change my life and make things right. As the voice spoke, I began to feel a sense of peace and clarity that I had never experienced before. I knew that I had been given a gift, and that I needed to use it wisely. And so, I made a promise to myself that I would do everything in my power to make the most of this opportunity. I would live every moment to the fullest, and I would never forget the lessons that I had learned in those 5 dangerous seconds that had lasted an eternity.
I was walking down a quiet street on a warm summer evening when suddenly I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around to see a man wearing a hoodie and sunglasses walking towards me. I quickened my pace, but so did he. My heart started racing as I realized I was in danger. As he got closer, I could see a glint of metal in his hand. I knew I had to act fast. In those few seconds, my mind raced through all the self-defense tips I had read on Reddit. I remembered someone saying to use my keys as a weapon, so I took them out of my pocket and held them tightly between my fingers. The man was now only a few steps away from me when I turned around and swung my keys at his face. He stumbled back, dropping the knife he was holding. I didn't waste a second and ran as fast as I could towards the nearest well-lit area. As I looked back, I saw him disappearing into the shadows. My heart was still pounding, and I knew that those few seconds could have been the end of my life. I was grateful for the advice I had read on Reddit, and I knew that those 5 seconds of quick thinking had saved my life.
I was once in a near-death experience that lasted only 5 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. It was a beautiful summer day, and I was out hiking with a group of friends in the mountains. We had reached the summit of a particularly challenging peak and were enjoying the breathtaking view when I lost my footing and slipped. In those 5 seconds, my life flashed before my eyes. I saw all the mistakes I had made, all the opportunities I had missed, and all the people I loved. I felt like I was falling for an eternity, and I resigned myself to the fact that this was the end. But then, miraculously, I felt a strong hand grab onto mine and pull me back up. It was one of my friends, who had acted quickly to save me. Those 5 seconds felt like an eternity, but they also taught me a valuable lesson about the fragility and preciousness of life. From that moment on, I made a conscious effort to live every day to the fullest and appreciate the people and experiences in my life. It was a terrifying experience, but one that ultimately made me a stronger and more grateful person.
I was driving home from work one evening, exhausted and ready to relax. As I approached an intersection, saw the light turn yellow, and thought I could make it through. In those 5 seconds, my life changed forever. As I sped through the intersection, I saw a car coming from the other direction. It was going way too fast, and I knew it was going to hit me. I tried to swerve, but it was too late. The other car crashed into mine, and everything went black. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. The doctors told me that I had been in a coma for 5 years. I couldn't believe it. Those 5 seconds had turned my life upside down. I had lost everything: my job, my home, and my friends. I had missed 5 years of my life and didn't know how to move forward. It was a dark time for me, and I struggled to come to terms with what had happened. But eventually, I found a way to pick myself up and start over. I got a new job, made new friends, and even found love again. Those 5 seconds may have been dangerous, but they taught me the importance of living in the present and cherishing every moment of life.
I was never one to believe in fate, but after what happened to me, 5 seconds felt like an eternity. I was walking down the street when I heard a loud crash, followed by screeching tires. I turned to see a car hurtling towards me, out of control. Everything seemed to slow down as I realized I had only seconds to react. My instincts took over as I dove out of the way, rolling onto the pavement just as the car slammed into a nearby building. The sound of the impact was deafening, and debris rained down around me. As I lay there, dazed and in shock, I couldn't help but think about how those 5 seconds had changed everything. I could have easily been in that car's path, but somehow I had managed to avoid it. It was as if some unseen force had guided me to safety. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had narrowly escaped death, and that my life had been forever altered by those 5 seconds. As I walked away from the scene, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the opportunity to keep living. I realized that life is unpredictable and fragile, and that every moment is precious. Those 5 seconds had taught me to cherish the time I have and to live each day to the fullest.